A little while ago, I went to see Pixar's latest animated feature dubbed Elio. A movie that sadly has gone under the radar of many people due to it being poorly marketed by Disney in favor of other movies that they came out with. Which I think is a massive shame, because Elio might well be one of Pixar's most important and meaningful movies of all time. It completely changed the way I look at Pixar movies and made me respect Pixar as a studio even more than I already did. Lots of people have already talked about Pixar and how their stories resonate with a lot of people, either when their life is going on a downward spiral, or they have to find an answer to some sort of dilemma they're facing, or losing someone they hold dear. Elio is another example of a movie that resonates with a certain group of people, but it also opened my eyes to a much bigger picture that Pixar has been putting on screen for decades. It represents a side of Pixar that is far more meaningful than anything that Pixar has discussed in the previous movies. A reason why their movies are as powerful to so many of us as they are, and why we always come back to them. They don't just make these movies for those who are looking for a quick source of entertainment to tide them over. They make movies to help and to support those who are lonely, and make people connect to worlds and characters who are in similar situations as many of us are. People who need something or someone to connect to. Let's talk about that. Elio is a young boy who has an extremely high fascination for the extraterrestrial. Something out there far beyond planet Earth that virtually nobody's seen before. To the point where he even developed his own alien language. A big reason why he has such a wild fascination is because of his parents, who from what we can assume have told him numerous stories about space and what may live up there. They bring up this concept that there might be more beyond planet Earth than what we may know. His parents knew that kids have a vivid imagination that they wanted to take full advantage of. Sadly, however, this would not last, as Elio's parents passed away while he was still a very, very young boy, leaving him behind with his aunt who would take care of him from this point forward. The movie never tells us exactly what happened for Elio's parents to pass away, nor do we get to see anything of them. They kind of leave his childhood ambiguous, presumably because they want to put a lot more focus on where Elio is in his present. And watching him, it is very safe to say that he is in a very lonely place. Unlike his parents, who had supported him the whole way no matter how weird or how vivid he was, his aunt is a lot more serious and doesn't quite understand the mindset that the kid has. It is even implied that she isn't even around Elio all that much, as we see him eat pizza all by himself in one particular scene. At one point, Elio even just talks about how he feels very alone and just wants to be with people who understand him. Throughout the movie, you can really see him hurt in how lonely he truly feels. It wasn't until he got abducted by aliens and he found himself being accepted into a community who he resonated with that he really started to brighten up and enjoy his life again for the first time. But even with all of that, he unfortunately couldn't help but feel ever so slightly lonely. For the only family he has left is someone who barely understands him and doesn't seem to want to spend time actually learning about him. Everyone around him seems to think that Elio is little more than a nuisance or even a freak at times. Thus, it's really difficult for him to make any friends at all. The one time he did try to connect with people, a series of shenanigans would lead to them wanting to scare him or beating the shit out of him. So beyond him just being lonely in the sense that he has very few people to talk with or to interact with, he is also shown to be lonely in the sense that he doesn't know where he belongs or what even his purpose is. He doesn't seem to know if he ever will find his purpose or if he will ever belong somewhere. Now you may be wondering how all of this connects to literally every other movie that Pixar has ever made prior to this. Well, it all comes down to the themes that Pixar often tackles. Their movies in general require a little bit of thought to watch through and to understand what they are actually talking about. This being no exception to that rule. But more importantly, people can connect to this movie in ways that I only started to realize after seeing this. When people talk about Pixar, they often just talk about one individual movie with that one message. They are often discussed within a vacuum, which I think is perfectly valid. When people don't think that certain movies are connected, I am not gonna be one to blame them for that. But this Koen's Corner is dedicated to connecting them. You see, what Elio made me realize is that every single Pixar movie has something very major in common that I think makes them all a whole lot more powerful than I initially realized. They all tell stories and have characters within those stories that revolve around loneliness. They talk about characters who have no purposes, who have very few people to connect with, who don't really belong anywhere. All of which are signs of someone who is lonely. I came to this realization from Elio because it is exclusively about loneliness and someone overcoming it over a series of events that occur. The journey to that point is definitely not easy for him, as it isn't easy in real life either, but it is a journey that he does overcome in the end, by reuniting with the one family he has left and having a heartfelt moment with her. When you really think about it and break down a bunch of other Pixar films, you'll probably realize that loads of characters in them deal with very similar problems as well. Miguel not getting support from his family for something that he is genuinely passionate about. Marlin and Nemo being separated from each other. Woody losing his favorite place as Andy's favorite toy to play with. Mr. Incredible losing the right to be Mr. Incredible. All of these scenarios have something to do with the main characters either losing something important to them or not having somebody around them to support them. In other words, they're all scenarios that have something to do with someone feeling lonely in some way. And they all talk to the audience in a very calming and supportive manner when characters vent about their struggles. When talking about loneliness, they often do it in a very calm and slow manner, with very little to no jokes sprinkled in there. It's just two or more characters having a good conversation about things that they struggle with, and then offering each other the support that they need. Simultaneously, they also talk to the audience watching. Beyond just having characters that resonate with audiences, they also verbally remind us that no matter how rough we have it, we are not alone in anything that we go through. That sentiment is reflected by people in the comment section of Pixar movies on YouTube and reviews on Letterboxd. When scrolling through reviews of Elio alone, there is no shortage of people expressing how they could relate to Elio in the movie, and the same thing has happened to every other Pixar film that has come out. Pixar gets people who may feel the same or experience the same pain as a lot of characters in these movies do to come together to talk and support each other through whatever hard times they may be dealing with. Movies like Coco and Elio are prime examples of why they get as much respect as they do. And as far as I'm concerned, Elio just gave it one more reason as to why that is. This Koen's Corner was largely inspired by a content creator by the name of Telestro, who made a very similar video to this, which was all about lo-fi music. I found that video so fascinating and inspiring that I wanted to make a video similar to that, but related to film rather than music. Telestro's video will be left in the description down below in case you're curious, and I highly encourage you to check it out. You might learn something and feel compelled to maybe listen to some good lo-fi for yourself. Another reason why I made this video the way that I did, instead of making this a full review of Elio, is because I've been kind of wanting to get away from the whole review format. It's a format that works, but it's also a format that I found a bit boring. I would much rather make videos like this where I genuinely have something to say, instead of making a video simply talking about a movie that I watched the other night and sharing my opinions on it. This is just a lot more interesting to me, and I reckon it would also just be a little more interesting to you to watch. Anyway, I've said enough for the time being. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for watching.